Loop Hero, first released March of 2021, available on PC, Nintendo Switch, and Xbox platforms. Retailing for $14.99. Loop Hero is a retro-style, deck-building roguelike. It takes place in a medieval fantasy setting where some manner of apocalypse has apparently happened. Everything has disappeared, leaving only a black void. But things from the world can return, if they are remembered. Rather, our hero was the last thing left in the void, or was remembered by something else within it, is unclear. But we do know that things were slowly blinking out of existence for a long time before we got to this point. The game will always begin with a black void. In this void, there will be a road that loops. As you fight monsters, you will get cards that represent different geographic details. These might be mountains or meadows, forests, or buildings of different descriptions. Each one will in some way affect the stats of your hero, and sometimes can affect the stats of monsters too. And if two things are placed next to each other, it is very possible for things to affect one another, or for you to unlock bonuses by arranging things in specific ways, such as putting a 3x3 area of mountains that will combine into one large mountain, also causing harpies to begin spawning. But effects can also happen just from having too many of a certain tile. Put down 10 or more mountains, and a goblin camp will spawn along the road somewhere. This means you need to think about where you are putting tiles, and how many tiles you are actually putting down, as interactions between different tiles can be good, bad, or a little of both. After you unlock enough different kinds of cards, you can no longer carry every type of card with you, and you have to decide what will and won't be available to you. Would you rather have forests or deserts? Do you want to be able to lay down ruins? Or haunted houses? And sometimes cards are only good if you have other cards to go with them. Villages are good for healing you, but they do more healing if you put down wheat fields next to them. But that's taking up 2 slots in your deck, and what are you going to leave behind so you can take both of them? And if you're actually hoping to see the end of a loop to fight a boss, you need to be very mindful of what you've taken with you, as you need to complete a certain number of loops, as well as filled in so much of the world, and it needs to be filled with the right thing, as if the world is too challenging, you won't get enough loops. And if the world is not challenging enough, you won't find the kind of gear that will actually make your hero strong enough to beat the boss. And as you beat bosses, you will unlock new classes that you can play as. At first, you can only be a warrior, very much the generic knight of a fantasy setting. Then you unlock Rogue. That's quicker and more attack-oriented, but doesn't have near the defense of the warrior. And you will unlock Necromancer, my personal favorite, as they summon undead minions to fight with them. And you have no control over what happens in combat. You can pick your class, you can put gear on your class, and different tiles will affect stats, but combat is just automatic. And sometimes your class will actually affect how things treat you. You can get outposts at a certain point, and they will help the warrior and rogue in combat. But the outpost will not help a necromancer. They will in fact be hostile towards them. There's also the matter of determining what gear you want to put on your hero. Each one of the classes is dependent on different stats, and it does require a certain amount of trial and error to determine what's the most effective strategy, as you might think it's always best to put on gear of a higher level. The truth is that unless the gear has the right stats for your class on it, you don't want to put it on. There is also a small town building mechanic that you can interact with between playing your loops. With resources you gather during your loops, you can upgrade this town in various ways. This will give you various benefits on your loops, such as starting a loop with some basic gear, or improving your stats at the beginning of a loop. In general, anything you do in camp will directly benefit you, though grinding materials to upgrade everything is quite time-consuming. It's also interesting the first time any creature shows up. as you will almost always have a conversation with them, as apparently everything remembers that it was forgotten and in the void, and is aware that it's only back because it's been remembered. Oddly, this doesn't make any monstrous creatures decide to help you. I guess you remember the world as it was, for both the good and the bad. So is Loop Hero worth your time and money? Well, it's only a $15 purchase, so it's hardly going to break the bank, and it is the kind of game that is endlessly replayable, as you can try loops with different variations on your deck, and the 3 classes do affect how exactly you should be playing, thus allowing you to do challenge runs with decks that aren't necessarily suited to the hero class you choose. It's a kind of game that's easy to play in short bursts, as actually completing a loop takes less than half an hour. That is assuming you reach the end of a loop to fight a boss, as more often than not you probably won't make it that far. But even when not completing a loop, you'll still get resources to upgrade the camp, and do have a chance of unlocking new cards by finding interactions between cards you already own. This is, after all, a game that is very much about experimentation. So yes, I absolutely do recommend Loop Hero. Please do subscribe, comment, like, and tell your friends.